Good morning. This is Faith in Our Hometown, brought to you as a community service and sponsored by Mercy Hospital, Joplin. And now, here is your host, Father Jay Friedel.
Good morning, everyone. I hope you are having a most blessed Sunday morning. Whether it's the early slot or the later slot, I hope your day's off to a great start. And again, we're just kind of honored that you're spending part of that day with us, either before you go to church or maybe after, whatever. But it's good to be with you for another Sunday morning of Faith in Our Hometown, our weekly conversation about things that matter to us as people in the Joplin area, and especially as it borders on some of those issues for us as people of faith. My guest this morning is going to be one of our city council members. It'll be the first time she's with us, but Diane Reid-Adams is going to be with us, and we're going to be talking a little bit about, again, Joplin and what's going on in Joplin, and some of those things and the positive things that are going on, because we've been having all kinds of conversation about how to improve the city, and so all things are bubbling to the top. And the other thing that we're going to talk a little bit about is what it is to be in that political arena as a woman here in an area like Joplin. So you just grab that cup of coffee and settle in, and we're going to be right back after this Mercy Minute, so don't go away.
Lung cancer is the leading cause of cancer deaths in the U.S., and now we have an effective tool to screen for it. A low-dose CT uses a lower amount of radiation than a standard chest CT.
Breathe in.
Better detailed pictures than a chest x-ray of small abnormal areas of the lung. A person must be between 55 to 77 years old, asymptomatic, which means they don't have any symptoms such as coughing up blood, chronic cough, shortness of breath, unusual weight loss, or any other worrisome symptoms. They must also be a current smoker or have quit within the past 15 years, also must have a 30-pack year history or more, which equates to smoking 1 pack a day for 30 years, or 2 packs a day for 15 years. People generally avoid these scans, possibly due to fear of what could be found. Like many other cancers, if we can detect lung cancer early, it could be very treatable and life-saving.
Well, again, thanks for joining us for another Sunday morning of Faith in Our Hometown. And my guest this morning, Diane Reid-Adams, who's a city council member for Zone 4. Where is Zone 4?
Zone 4 is Newton County.
Okay, all right, so the southern section of the city, and it's good to have you with us. Why don't you tell everybody, not everybody knows you,
Right.
So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you landed on the city council?
Okay. My family moved to Joplin when I was about 4 years old. So I was educated here, grew up here, attended Missouri Southern State College back then. And my dad was a new car dealer here in Joplin for 23 years. He was also on the city council 50 years ago. And I always wanted to do everything my dad did. So I worked with him in the car business for 15 years.
There you go.
And then when we sold the business, I attended grad school for my advanced degrees. I sort of studied the city government, the charter, with him. And I really liked it. I like politics. I've been interested in government since I was 12. So
Just a couple years ago.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, maybe a half century or more. So when I went to grad school, then I got my advanced degrees in American history, and I began teaching. I have taught everything from 6th grade Spanish, I've taught drama, I've taught economics, Missouri history, American history, of course, and ended up at the university level.
Mm-hmm.
When I retired from UMKC in 2013, I began teaching at Missouri Southern, part-time as an adjunct, American history, until I retired full-time.
So you had a full-time retirement?
Yes, in 2016, and got married. And my husband and I traveled some. And then after about a year and a half, we were sitting at the breakfast table one morning, and there was an article in the newspaper about city council seats. And anyone interested could come in and pick up a petition to run for city council. So I just looked at Joe and I said, I think I'll run for council. And he said, go for it. So I did. I had no idea what I was doing. I never expected to win. And then when I did, I was as shocked as anybody.
Okay.
But I have been on council since April of 2018. I love it. It's very interesting. It's basically what I was trained to do. I've taught the U.S. Constitution, I've taught the Missouri Constitution, and it's just so fascinating to me.
Yeah.
The way that our government runs.
Well, you know, I always would say, you know, I don't think anybody will be surprised to hear me say this, but the church drives me crazy sometimes, and so does our government, you know, and it's partially because I believe in those ideals so much, you know, and when we don't seem to get it right, it frustrates me, you know. I just, you know, chafe at the whole thing. And I just want to see it work better. But I love the church. You know, it's an institution and a mystery. And I also love I love our United States. I love our local government. I love all those things because I don't know even how we imagined it, how we dreamed it all up, and how it's worked so well for as long as it's worked. It's like this long experiment that we've had going, and I love it. It just fascinates me because I believe in the principles,
Right.
you know, so much. And so, you know, probably the one I know the least amount, and I'll just be real honest here, I probably know the least about city government, you know, and we don't have to explain all that to everybody if they don't want to hear it. But I'm just saying, I know more about, you know, the way that the federal government works, and I know more the way that the state government works than I do about even how our own city works. And that's probably bad on me. But I keep up with what you all talk about and what you do.
Good.
And, you know, and I think that that's important. So since 2018, okay, all right.
And I'm interested in economics, political science, history. My doctoral dissertation was on President Truman's Point 4 program for the economic development of Latin America.
Okay.
So I did my research in English, Spanish, and Portuguese for that. And also Truman was my fourth cousin, so
well, there you go.
It gives me a connection there.
See?
I've worked some with the Truman Library in Independence and written on Truman topics. I've written on Abraham Lincoln, and I've written on World War II. My dad was in the Big Red One, landed on Omaha Beach on D-Day, fought his way up to Belgium for the Battle of the Bulge, and was one of the liberators of Buchenwald.
There you go.
And so I was privileged
you
to...
do have a sense of history about you, which I love.
I do.
Yeah.
I was so privileged to go with UMKC to Europe to teach in the summer of 2006 and taught the invasion of Omaha Beach standing in the sand where my dad had landed.
That's amazing.
The highlight of my teaching career.
God love you. That is terrific. That is terrific. So say a little bit more about that. I feel a little fascinated by the way you said it. You said all this learning and all of this scholarship that you did and teaching, you know, and all those age ranges, you said brought you to where you are today. That all that training set you up to do what you're doing now. Say a little bit more about that.
Well, when I retired, first I was bored because I was used to working maybe 60 hours a week or on the road or something, and I thought, what shall I do? There are lots of volunteer opportunities in Joplin. And I looked at several different things. I was on the board of directors with Habitat for Humanity and on the family selection committee with them for several years. And then I thought, you know, government is where I belong. And it's a way for me to use my education to help the city that I love. And I have been very happy, for the most part, doing it. We have quite a variety of people on the council, age-wise, men, couple women, and it's been interesting to get to know different perspectives on things. And there are some that I don't agree with at all, but we do it in a friendly manner.
Well, you know, I've talked with one of your other council members about that a few weeks ago. I talked with Gary Shaw about that because Gary and I are both firm believers in the fact that it's okay to disagree. I mean, you know, Gary and I'd probably disagree about some things on religion, not the big things, but little fine points here and there. Okay, or the way we should go about it or whatever. And we can agree to disagree, but we don't. That doesn't mean we have to be acrimonious or nasty about it.
Right.
You know, we just, okay, all right, you believe kind of your way and you go your way and I'll go this way, but where can we work together? Where can we intersect? And how can we make the whole thing better, even with differing viewpoints? I hope our government can figure out how to do that this round.
I do too. Trying to compromise, Take a little bit from here and a little bit from there and come out with the best possible solution.
Yeah, and again, is everybody going to be pleased with all of it? No.
No.
There's going to be some give and some take. I may not like this, but boy, I really think we need this, and so I'm willing to let you have some of that as long as we can do this, and how do we make all that work together?
And the COVID pandemic has been such a challenge because it's new territory for everybody.
Right.
And we do the best we can to take care of our citizens. We may not always make the right decisions, but we're trying.
Right, yeah. And again, and that's one of those moments where, again, you may not have all the facts at the beginning. You learn more facts as you go, and then when we get more facts that say, okay, well, we should have gone this way instead of this way. Well, okay, then let's pivot. Let's go and learn from what we figured out now, and how to make it better. I just think that's anybody that says they've got it all figured out isn't really very smart. And
we try to listen to the people. I get emails from my constituents all the time. I try to listen to them, the phone calls, the texts that I get, and try to do what my constituents ask me to do in representing them. Our wonderful new city manager, Nick Edwards, embarked upon a listening tour of Joplin citizens, and we received the results compiled in a 180-page report, very small print. Almost had to get out the magnifying glass at my age. But he interviewed about 1,400 Joplin citizens through surveys or personal interviews to find out what we're doing right, what we're doing wrong, where do you see the city in 5, 10, or 15 years, what would you like to see here? And it's presented some challenges to us.
Yeah. And I guess that I'd be amazed that if we did a survey, we found out that everybody was happy with everything.
Oh, no, the answers are polar opposites in many cases. But tomorrow, which should be Monday, November 30th, the City Council is going to be meeting for a work session all day to go over this report. And we are going to, instead of taking a shotgun approach, because there are so many things we could be working on, we're going to try to prioritize the most important things that we need to get done this year, 2 years, 5 years from now, and work on those, whether it's homelessness in our community or dirty streets or potholes in the streets, whatever it is that the citizens have talked about the most, things that they want. One of the things they want is a grocery store. And we heard that many times. So tomorrow we're going to be looking at those results and talking, again, a lot of give and take, and try to come up with a list, a prioritized list. At the last council meeting, we were looking at this report, and Mr. Stennett, who sits next to me, and Mr. Stennett and I don't always agree on things. No. In fact, we don't often agree. And he said, I'm going to have my list of priorities, my issues that I want. And he said, and I hope Dr. Reid-Adams will have hers, and she will argue hers just as much as I do mine.
Yeah. And that's the way government's supposed to work together. Yeah, that's good. It's good to hear. Well, my guest this morning, I should have done it that way, but Dr. Dr. Reid-Adams with us today, talking about City Council, and I do want to talk about the role of women too when we get into our second half. So we're going to be right back after this after a quick break. So don't go away.
You're watching Faith in Our Hometown on KSN TV, brought to you as a community service and sponsored by Mercy Hospital, Joplin.
Well, again, we're honored that you joined us for another Sunday morning of Faith in Our Hometown. I'm talking this morning with Dr. Diane Reid-Adams, who's a city council member, retired from the university, a couple universities actually, and with us here as a city council member, just talking a little bit before the break about, different council members have different priorities, and it's going to be interesting to see those along with all those who work for the city, along with all those, that input that you all got from 1,400, yes, Joplin residents, which I think is pretty amazing, and it'll be interesting to see where all that comes out, you know,
will
in
be.
terms of some of that. So I do want to ask you a little bit of a follow-up question. So, you know, what would be like, say, some of your priorities, if you don't mind mentioning those, since you're going to be talking about them soon? Have you had a chance to maybe pull out 2 or 3 that you'd be willing to share with us this evening?
Yes, I think making our city clean, inviting, beautiful is part of it. The Downtown Joplin Alliance has a design team, and I'm on that design team as a city council member. And a subcommittee of that is the clean team, mostly younger people who get out once a month and pick up trash downtown. So that's a major problem. And the other one is homelessness. We have a huge homeless population. And we offer services for them, but are we doing the right thing with them? We need to look at that very carefully. And then we need to look at maybe bringing in a grocery store. Hy-Vee has been mentioned. People are wanting Menards, and we are working on that one again. So there are some priorities like that. The beautification effort leads me to something else. I'm the City Council representative on the Centennial Celebrations Commission.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. Good.
And we have so many celebrations coming up, and I hope Joplin will get really excited about these things. Next year is the Missouri Bicentennial. We'll have some art exhibits and some musicians coming into town for special events. Then in 2023, we have Joplin's sesquicentennial, which is 150 years. And then we have the Route 66 centennial in 2026, as well as our nation's 250th birthday.
That's a lot of celebrating to do.
It is. We're going to try
There's
to
a
make
lot
it
of celebrating
a big
to
deal,
do.
especially with the sesquicentennial. So the iris is Joplin's city flower, and a lot of people who haven't lived here very long don't know that.
Yeah.
It was once called the orchid of the Ozarks. And we've kind of gotten away from promoting our iris. So I had the idea and took it to the commission of having an iris gardens tour in the spring of 2023, maybe with a tea at the museum. And then our former city clerk, Barbara Hoagland, had some iris-shaped cookie cutters made, which are on sale at the museum and at the CVB office in City Hall. And so we're going to make this iris a big deal. The Tri-State Iris Society donated hundreds of rhizomes, which is what they call the iris bulb.
Yep. Well, yep.
Yeah.
Because of the way they grow. Yeah.
And the ones that they donated to us are these expensive ones, $30, $40, $50 each. And hundreds of them. So I've taken them to Mercy, to Freeman, to the library, to the alternative high school, the Joplin Early Childhood Center, where we had a media event with the 4-year-olds planting these, and our Parks and Rec department. Paul Bloomberg has really bought into this. He's excited about it. He's going to put them in several of the parks. We'll have them at the entrances of Landreth, where a lot of our sesquicentennial events will be held, because that's where the first strike was. And Mercy Park is going to have abundant irises. They're going to plant them along with the sculptures.
Okay, good.
So people walking the trail can see. In May of 2023, we're hoping to host the Regional Iris Conference, which is all of Missouri and Kansas, here. A year ahead of time, they will send us 100 rhizomes from the growers, the latest productions, the latest varieties, and we will plant those here and then take people on a bus tour around to the iris gardens.
Nice.
The day of our local iris tour, we'll have maps available at the museum, and people can do a driving tour of private and public iris gardens and see all the iris that there are in Joplin, and maybe get the urge to plant some themselves.
There you go. Yeah. I used to, when I was in Cape Girardeau, I used to have some lovely bed of iris out in front of our Newman Center. I don't have a Newman Center here. Otherwise, I'd ask for some rhizomes, you know? Although I really just forgot they were technically called rhizomes. I just called them bulbs, you know? But it's great. And the best part about irises, if you don't know, is that they kind of, once they get established, then you can start splitting them and
They're
dividing
like
them and doing
rabbits.
them. They're like everywhere, and they'll keep going, which is great. So I do want to talk a little bit about, Diane, while you're here, is about, what's it like to be a woman in leadership, here in an area like Joplin, sometimes when people from the outside look at us, they say, oh, they're just like, they're, kind of backwater, and they're just kind of old-fashioned, or they're, set in their ways, or doing whatever. How do you find that as a woman leader here in Joplin?
Well, the Joplin City Council has had women on the council for many years. Back when my dad was on the council, Lena Beal was on the council. So there have been many women never a majority on the council, but there's always one or two. And right now it's an exciting time to be a woman in government. And my message to the ladies out there is, ladies, keep your shoes on, because there's a lot of broken glass out there.
Okay. Say a little bit more about that. You sailed that on out there. Now you're going to have to talk about it. You're going to have to explain it.
I think women have broken through the glass ceiling in many areas. CEOs of companies, leadership in towns. We have senators. Missouri has their first black congresswoman. She's from the St. Louis area, Cori Bush. And of course, we'll have our new Vice President, Kamala Harris. So I think all these women give our young girls something to aspire to.
Right.
I mean, at one time when girls were interested in the medical profession, they could be nurses, but they weren't told they could be doctors.
Yeah. It took the unusual one to make that happen.
Yes.
Back upon a time.
Women had to fight for this right. And now I think it's much, much easier than when I was growing up. Mm-hmm. So I think there's a lot of potential out there for women. And my dad always told me, you can be anything you want to be.
Yeah.
So.
And education made all the difference for you, didn't it?
It did.
Yeah.
And the field that I was in.
It's interesting. I've told my students for years, because this is my 28th year, I guess, in higher ed, although I've done so little of it this year because I can't really get on campus and function the way that we normally do very well. But I always told my students that as long as they have their education, that they'll never be poor.
Right.
They may not be rich, because depending on what job they go into, or it may not necessarily be high paying, but they'll never be poor.
Right.
Because they'll have a voice, and they'll know how to use it, and they'll have done their work and know what they're talking about when they move forward and to do those things. And so I've always just been and again, once you're educated, then you've got responsibilities. Right. Because once you have attained a certain level of expertise, then you have work to do.
That's true. You have to use your talents and your experience and give back. I have a funny story about when I was running for council in April of 2018. I called my son in Chicago, was talking to him, and he put the phone on speaker, and his little girl was 5 at the time. And she was running in and out of the room, hi Grandma, and she heard the conversation between her dad and me about the campaign. And she said, Daddy, is Grandma running for president? And he said, no. He said, well, not yet.
Not yet.
And she said, okay. And
she just kept going. She's like, okay. She knows Grandma's going to do what she darn well pleases, and
I hope she'll think that she can too.
Well, exactly. And I do think I think that that's regardless of where everybody came out on this election and everything else, I do think that these are some interesting moments for us. I do think it's interesting that we have a vice president now who is of mixed background in terms of bringing some Asian culture in there, bringing some African American culture in there. I think that, and again, I do love what that does for our kids.
Yes.
Because it does say, it's part of what we've always proclaimed to be part of the American dream.
Exactly.
Is that you can do things given an opportunity. And I don't think it's quite that easy, because I do think that there are a few things that mitigate sometimes against that success in the lives of some of our folks. And again, there's always the whole thing too of you got to have some propensity or some talent to do some of those things. But I love the fact that gives our kids more options to dream about. I really do. I have to say that, and that's regardless of which way you come out on the, whether whether you won in the elections or were happy about it or weren't. Mm-hmm. We got what we got. It's what we did. It's what we elected. It's who we elected, and now we work with it. Mm-hmm. I always keep telling everybody that it's the work you do after the election is probably more important than the work that you did before the election.
All right. And Arthur Schlesinger Jr. wrote a book one time about the cycles of American history, and he said that there is this pendulum that goes back and forth, and the swings are getting shorter now. But when he wrote, it was like a 20-year cycle. We'll have a cycle of all-out social programs, and we're just working hard, and we're doing this, and we're doing that, and then we get exhausted, and we want to go back and do something more conservative for a while. So, and if you look at history, our presidents, that pendulum does swing back and forth. And I think the important thing to do now is try to recognize that all American people don't believe one way or the other, and we have to do the best we can to work across the aisle and in the middle of the road.
Well, and that's my prayer, really. I know we've got a divided country, but I think we got to work to put ourselves back together. We got to work to bring ourselves back together. Because this whole business about I'm just going to oppose you because you're the other side seems really silly to me, especially when our people, we are the ones who suffer when we operate that way. So again, my guest this morning, Dr. Diane Reid-Adams. Diane, thank you so much for being with us today, and we're going to be right back after this Mercy Minute, so don't go away.
Blessings and greetings of mercy to you. My name is Anna Nichols. I am a Sister of Mercy and currently the leader of Heritage and Spirituality at Mercy International Association. I love the fact that sisters throughout time have gone where they have been called to go, and they have often picked up ministries that they never intended to pick up. 25 years ago, there were 22,000 Sisters of Mercy globally. Today we're down to about 6,200 with Sister Rock and some of the others. But despite the fact there are 6,500 or 6,200 sisters left, there is an amazing number of women and men of mercy who are working alongside us, and that continues to expand and expand, and for me that is incredibly exciting. So as far as National Catholic Sisters Week, I really look at the legacy that they have passed on and the fact that so many women, men, young people are living mercy today. That really is for me what's significant.
Well, again, thanks for joining us this morning for another episode of Faith in Our Hometown. I do hope that as these holiday season kind of unfolds for everyone, we can remember our best instincts rather than our worst. And we were talking about some of that today with our guest, Dr. Reid-Adams. It is important that we remember what brings us together. It's important that we remember hope. It's important that we remember that we ought to take the opportunity to use the gifts we've been given and to make some improvements on this world that we share. That's one of the things I love about Joplin, is that everybody jumps in and for the most part cooperates to try to make it better for everybody else. That, my friends, is called agreeing across the aisle. That's called just being good neighbors. That's called having a hometown. And we can be proud of that. So thanks for joining us for another Sunday morning. I hope the rest of your Sunday is great and that God blesses you in many good ways this week. Thanks for joining us, and join us again next week.
Thanks for watching. Faith in Our Hometown can be seen Sunday mornings at 6:30 and 9 a.m. on KSN. Brought to you as a community service and sponsored by Mercy Hospital, Joplin.